What's going on, everybody? We got our guest Tim Maile in the house tonight.
That Tim.
Got two Tims.
That
Don't get
Tim.
confused.
That's a sweet hoodie you got there, Ricky.
I know, right? Oh, wait, wrong side. Hey, shout out Murray's Legacy. Autograph for Poochers. Right there. Speaking of that, tell them what that is.
Wow, jump right into it. Folks that don't know who I am, there's probably quite a few. My name is Tim Maile, and I founded Photographs for Pooches back in 2013, but I got to start way before that to make it all make sense. It really all happened because of 2006. And in 2006, I moved into the house that I'm in now. And 31 years old and never dealt with anything paranormal. Moved into this house and battling a lot of personal issues at the time that were causing me a lot of harm as far as like mental health issues, and going through a lot of depression at the time. And back in 2006, it wasn't so easy to talk about that stuff. I think we've come a long way. But in 2006, moved into this house and dealing with a lot of stuff that I couldn't deal with at the time. And then to throw on top of that, moving into this house and having activity within the first week or two. Growing up, my dad's side of the family was very religious, and what that meant was you die, you go to heaven or hell. There's no reason to discuss it further. That's just what happens. My dad had passed when I was really young, and got into this house and had all these things happening. Footsteps, voices, bangs in the wall. Looking back at it, relatively tame activity, but for somebody that never dealt with it ever in their life before, it was causing me some
concern.
Yeah. And I remember calling my mom, and for those that don't know me, I'm like 6'4", 270 on a light day. And I called my mom and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? And she told me, oh, we'll go see what it is. And for those that know my mom, she's the biggest chicken shit in the world. And the fact that she told me to go see what it was comical to me. But dealing with that stuff, and then dealing with the stuff that was going on in my head, and just getting out of a relationship, and that was a big reason for everything that was going on in my life. I wanted a dog in the worst way. It was the first time I'd ever owned a home, and it was my first opportunity to get a dog. And I remember looking up online at petfinder.com and looking for a yellow lab, and found a yellow lab pit bull mix. The story on him was that the rescue had actually gone into the home and taken him. He was beaten so badly as a puppy. I got him at 6 months old. Beaten so badly as a puppy that whoever had him tried to tear his tail off. And his whole life, Murray couldn't wag his tail.
Oh.
I had to talk the shelter into letting me come visit, because it was a man that had done this to him, and they kept telling me he doesn't trust men, he doesn't like men. Couldn't have been further from the truth, though. Went down to see him for the first time, and they directed him my way, and I remember him just breaking into this full sprint and jumping into my arms, and I thought, well, this is it. This is my boy.
He chose you.
I brought him home, and we instantly bonded, and instantly he saw the things that I was hearing and seeing. He immediately started to follow things in the house, the voices, the sounds, and for the first time in a few months, I didn't feel insane anymore.
Yeah,
there was another living being that was recognizing at least the things that I was hearing. He and I, from the beginning, were cool, and things were going great. And unfortunately, the issues I was having mentally were not going away. And it would be sometime in January 2007, I sat in my bathroom with the largest knife that I had in the house. And I went through one by one my friends and my family, and came up with a BS excuse as to why it would be okay if I wasn't here, why it would be better if I wasn't here. And as I was about to do the unthinkable, I felt this thing on my left arm, and I looked down, and it was Murray, and he was looking up at me.
Oh,
And I broke down. I crumpled to the floor and just hugged on him for about an hour and just let everything go. And he snapped me out of it. He saved my life. And from that point forward, he and I were best buddies, but we were no longer owner and dog. We were father and son.
right.
And I took that very seriously. And every day, the rest of his life, I tried to make it the best life ever. Because how do you thank somebody that saves your life? The paranormal stuff really started to take off for me. In the meantime, I decided, let's start a team and let's help families out there that are having issues with the paranormal, because in my experience, I couldn't get teams to come in and talk to me. So I thought, there's got to be other families out there that are looking for help that aren't getting it. So Fox City's paranormal team was born in 2008. We've been doing this in January. We've been doing this for 14 years now. And it gave me a platform that I started to get invited to paranormal conferences around the country. And that's my mom.
How's it going?
She's my biggest fan. I love her to death.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
I started to get invited to more and more events around the country because in 2013, we were fortunate enough to be featured on Paranormal Witness. So I like to joke and say that 8 years ago I was relevant, but it opened up a lot of doors for me. And in opening those doors, I had a chance to go to conferences around the country and talk about what I did. And they always give you a table and they say, hey, sell whatever you want to sell. This is yours. And I didn't have anything, but that was all right with me. I was 5 years into the field and getting these opportunities. But I thought Murray's mortality was starting to weigh on me because by then he was 7 years old. And my mental status at the time was such that I was worried what happened to me after he was gone, because I was truly living every day for him. And he was what was keeping me around. And, I had this opportunity and I thought, well, what if we have pictures of Murray and I and he photographs them? Photographs is actually a play on word of autograph. And we had this stamp. I think I got it. Yeah. Still got the stamp here of Murray's paw. And we had photos and we would stamp those photos, sell them for $10 a piece. And whatever we raised would go to a shelter in the area that we were in. Very meager beginnings. The first event, we raised $10. And it's humbling, but you have to start somewhere.
Right.
Eventually, this started to grow and grow and grow, and we were raising a couple $100 here and a couple $100 there. And here we are. It'll be 9 years next April, so 8.5 years now. And we raised over $72,000 for shelters around the country. Far more than anything I expected. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm so grateful for the paranormal community for wrapping their arms around it. And then we got to a point where we started doing Photographs exclusive events, and all these fantastic people from the paranormal field are coming in for these Photographs events and for either free or for dirt cheap. And we're able to raise money for these shelters. And last year, or this past March, we raised $13,223 at one event.
Wow.
And, that's our record, and we're looking to break that record next year. But everything about this is about Murray. And I come on a lot of these shows and people want to give me all this praise, and it's uncomfortable for me because this truly did begin because of a dog, and it would not have succeeded if it wasn't for him. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So everything that happened past January 2007 is all him. I wouldn't be here otherwise, and I've never lost sight of that. Unfortunately, in October 2019, Murray passed away at the age of 13. Worst day of my life.
Yeah.
Not even close. There's nothing to compare. But I made a deal with him. I told him, I said, you got to let me know you're okay. Otherwise, I'm coming to look for you. And that sounds exactly what it sounds like. I woke up the next morning with 4 messages from mediums that I'm friends with. And every message from those 4 mediums started with, Murray says it's very important that you let his dad know that he's okay.
Oh,
And he held up his end of the bargain. So here I
awesome.
am trying to do what I can to make Potograph a success and just carry on Murray's legacy.
Which I think that's really interesting. I got some feedback on the audio.
Oh,
okay.
I'm on normal mic.
Sorry, I'm hearing some butt back. Anyway, I think that's really interesting because the old phrase that legends are made of vulnerable people. So even Ricky and I, this is our fifth podcast episode. Going back to our first podcast, our friendship came out of pretty much tragedy. A lot of good things in my life that did the same thing. I think it's interesting to know that you took that negative and turned it into something positive. So that's pretty cool.
I appreciate that. And that was exactly the idea behind the day we started Potographs. As a child, my dad was hit by a construction vehicle while he was putting out safety cones at my elementary school. And he would be in a coma for 6.5 years and pass away from those injuries. He was hit on April 18th, 1984. And we started Potographs on April 18th, 2013. With the sole purpose of making that day a positive for me. So it's amazing that you say it that way. That was the whole idea behind it, trying to make something good and something positive out of a situation that was not.
But when you go through something, man, it's just like old Shawshank Redemption. You either get busy living or get busy dying. It looks like you got busy living, and that's awesome. And especially in memory of a dog, which to me, that's not bad to say, because when you say it in memory of a dog, that's just like saying in memory of a kid or in memory of a human being to me. Other people are different, feel that way. But at the same time, it's a harrowing story. It really is. And I hope that story continues into something much, much bigger than what it is right now. And the fact that you don't even want to take credit for that, you're giving that credit to a dog, is monumental. I hate that your team's going to lose to Georgia, but it's monumental.
That's messed up.
It's
all good. We got Murray right here too.
I will tell you this: first time in 10 years that Michigan beat Ohio. I'm all right with it. So
hey, I was a huge Michigan fan that weekend.
Whatever happens from now on is good. But with the whole,
I was trying to make everybody laugh. That's all.
Sometimes you got to add a little bit of humor in, because my subject can get a little dark. But with Murray, it's like I couldn't imagine taking any of that credit, because this all started because of him. And the day he passed, in October 14th, 2019, I saw so many people come together and grieve for a dog. He touched so many people, and he made it possible for so many animals to get adopted, for so many shelter pets to find a home, and he's allowed humans to feel things that they haven't felt in a long time. When I first started telling my story at these events, it was late 2012. I had no idea how it was going to affect people. I was really naive, and I remember the first couple of events that I told my story, I had a line of people at the table when I got done, and they wanted to tell me their story, how their cat or their dog saved them. And I realized, first of all, I wasn't alone, and second of all, that this story meant something to somebody. So, all the credit goes to Murr, and all the accolades can go to him. And I've always said that I'll play second fiddle to that guy any day of my life.
But yeah, you tying it into paranormal, though, that the whole story in itself could actually be a paranormal story. It doesn't necessarily always have to be scary. I've lost brothers. We've talked about this before several times. I've had things like that. Not no huge organization or anything come out of it, but mediums say stuff to me, and friends say stuff to me that they've had dreams, and he wanted to tell me this, that, and the other. You have to ask yourself, when you come to a tragedy like that, because you're vulnerable at that point. I really think that once you've gone through a lot and you've lost somebody like Murray, you become vulnerable and vulnerable to what's going on, on the other side. You know what I mean? And I really believe that's like the best times to catch paranormal, unless you're going to investigate, of course. But 95% of paranormal events happen when you're not looking for it. So, I mean, that's to me, what I'm saying is just to kind of tie it into paranormal, that kind of gives you something to think about. That is Murphy now an angel on your shoulder? That's what my grandpa used to say about animals, that they don't sin because they're angels. And it just makes sense. You know what I mean?
They are. They're the most unconditional loving beings you'll ever come across. Like, that's me. I love animals more than I love humans. That's just a fact, I bond so well with them. Right. It's just like they're not humans. They're saints in my eyes.
Yeah.
He's made himself known in other ways. That spirit that I first dealt with in my home ended up being my dad. And my dad passed when I was 15. And here I am. I didn't get confirmation of that until, what was the year? 2012. So 6 years after all this started happening, it's when I finally got confirmation that, this is my father. And running the team now and investigating the paranormal, I call on my dad for help a lot because I figure he's there, so he might as well do something.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what the paranormal field has given to me, and for the longest time I didn't even know it existed, and here I am, and I have such a wonderful life, and just so grateful for every opportunity that I get, and I feel like every chance I get, I got to give back to the paranormal community, because let's be honest, they've given me more than I can ever repay already.
Yeah.
It's good to have that positivity about the field too, because as of late, I mean, I've just seen so many things, but people forget to do and reflect like we're reflecting now. I mean, it's brought us all together. We're a big family because of the one thing we do, the paranormal field. It's brought so many awesome people together.
I
agree with that.
Friends in the paranormal field, and the thing that kind of sucks about it is all of my friends live all over the country.
Yeah, that's true.
I got a handful that are in my area that that are my crew, but
Georgia, Indiana.
Yeah.
For the most part, you're just looking around, going, "Man, I wish I could see my friends." And then you're like, "Well, when's the next event?" So when I get a chance to, it was great meeting you, Ricky, in Indiana at Fort Wayne. Yeah. We didn't get a whole lot of time to talk, but at least we got to meet and
right,
face with a voice, and I never imagined this is where life would take me, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So that's Pottergrass, right?
Pottergrass, yes.
Okay. Everybody make sure to check that out. Before we move on to my question for you would be this. I know that you said the paranormal world pretty much, and everybody, Para-Unity, has brought you a lot of support and all that. When it comes to paranormal, have you ever had a negative experience with the paranormal, like as far as like a entity or even people, or just picking your brain here?
As far as a negative entity, I can point back to one, and that was the case that ended up on Paranormal Witness. We were dealing with a 2-year-old that had been molested and murdered by a foster father.
Good gracious.
And I got to do the quick math in my head. 38 years later or so, somewhere around there, the family that moved into the home was dealing with this little boy and this older man. And we worked on that case with them for 2 years. And one of the things that they don't tell you when you get into the paranormal field is that these clients are going to become like family. So again, something that was so negative ended up being a positive, because we ended up helping the spirit of the boy. And then we gained more family members. I mean, that family to this day, I mean, we're talking 9-10 years after the fact. I still keep in touch with them. They still live about 40 minutes away from me. And they're great people. I've watched their kids grow from 8 years old, and now they're all grown and out of the house. And it's just amazing, where this can take you. And as far as like negative people within the field, I think you're going to find that in any walk of life. I mean, there's just people that just hate the hate.
Yeah.
It's like they wake up every morning and then like, excuse my language, but they're like, hey, what can I shit all over today?
Yeah, as soon as they see
Amen.
somebody
Amen to that, dude. I mean,
And I distance myself from those people because you can't ever make them happy. So, why try?
Absolutely. So when you talk about Paranormal Witness, what kind of led you into getting onto that show? I mean, we had Brandon Alvis here with us a few episodes back.
episode 2.
And we kind of picked his brain about what's behind that. Yeah, it was episode 3. We picked his brain about what was behind that curtain. He kept talking about that. He actually said that word, behind the curtain of production. What's TV? What's fiction? What's real? Because I think those shows a lot of them are for entertainment, but at the same time, it sounds like you actually had a real case on your hands. So
I never wanted the case to end up on TV. It didn't happen because of me. When we finally got to the conclusion of the case, we had worked with a fantastic medium. His name is Scotty Rourke. And it was my first case working with Scotty. And the producers of Paranormal Witness contacted Scotty and said, hey, do you have any residential cases that would be good for the show? And I'm not kidding when I tell you it took Scotty an hour to convince me to do the show. We sat and talked on the phone, and he tried to weigh out all the positives versus the negatives. And eventually I agreed to talk to the production company. They called me from London, and we talked for 2 hours. Because my integrity in the field means everything to me.
Sure.
Honestly, you ever lose your integrity and you're pretty much done in the paranormal field.
Amen.
Yeah, there's no recovering from that.
That was very important to me. I wanted Chris's story to be told, though. Chris was the 2-year-old boy that was molested and murdered in the home. I thought it was important that people heard his story. So I was open to the idea. I just needed to know that they weren't going to make this a sensationalized thing. And they gave me their word that they would tell Chris's story. And agreed to do the show. One funny thing from it was after 6 hours of taping, they sent me home because I wouldn't say the things that they wanted me to say exactly how they wanted me to say it. They'd be like, okay, that's great, but hey, can you say it this way? And I'd be like, well, that's not the way it happened, though.
Right.
And they actually sent me home after 6 hours because I was difficult to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought me back the next day, agreed to let me say things the way I wanted to say them. So I kind of won there. But then they took what I said and they put it over video that I wasn't talking about. At the end of the day, they told Chris's story correctly. They told his story truthfully. But they have to sell advertising. They have to get ratings. So everything around that was sensationalized and really amped up for the show. There was a point after the first investigation where the washer in the basement was moved about 3 feet by something that nobody could see. And on the show, the washer flew up and hit the ceiling of the basement. So they made things a little more exciting than they were, but I thought the show sold itself. And when it came out, I was happy with it. Because I fought for Chris, I fought for his story, and in the end, they told his story. So I think it worked for all of us.
Well, our previous podcast, unfortunately, Ricky couldn't join because he was traveling. Thanks, holidays. We had somebody here. His name was Tall Trey with Tall Trey Comedy. He complete skeptic, 100% does not believe in the paranormal. And I thought it was good to have his opinion, on the show. Either way, what would you say to somebody like that after experiencing or knowing a family that went through an experience like that? What would you say to somebody who's a complete non-believer? What would make you want to say, hey guys, look at this?
This might surprise you. I don't think it's my job to convince them. I was 31 years old when I had my first experience, and that's when my eyes were opened up to the field and to the paranormal world. I think you can explain things to people to a certain point, but they're never truly going to believe unless they experience it themselves.
Yeah.
Skepticism isn't bad. I'll be honest with you. At some points, it'd be nice to have more of it in the field. Yes. Then I would stop getting these photos saying, hey, what's in this red circle?
Or it's a blown up picture of a picture and pixelation, and it's just like
exactly. So
I hate those.
No, skepticism isn't bad, as long as it's constructive.
I was just fixing to say there's a difference between skepticism and just flat out I don't believe, get out of my face, I don't want to hear it. You know what I mean?
Like I was saying earlier, you're going to have those certain amount of people in any walk of life that are just going to try to shit all over everything.
Yep.
And I gave up a long time ago trying to convince those people that the spirit world exists. On the
Definitely not saying Trey is that way, by the way. Trey's not that way.
And I know
what you're saying.
Neither am I. But I will say this though: if somebody wants to have a discussion about the paranormal, I'll talk to you until I'm blue in the face. We could talk about it, because I come from a generation where we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And we can still be friends at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying?
Amen. Hallelujah.
So I mean, and having discussions and conversations is a good thing. Yeah. Somewhere along the line, we all stop.
It's something we don't do anymore. Yeah. The newer generation, everybody gets so offended.
I'm never talking to you. That's the end of it.
Right. Nobody wants to rationalize and sit and talk it out. And that's like the first thing I tell people. Like when they ask me about the paranormal, I have skeptics that I've talked to. They're like, "Oh, that's not real." Prove to me it's real. It's like, and I look at them. It's like I can't. I said the only way I can prove to you it's real if you have your own personal experience. That day, that's when your mind, takes over. Finally,
and then come to me with your questions, and we can explain stuff to you, and we can talk about it, because at that point your mind is a little bit more open to the conversation.
I can show you a clip that I'm the only one in this location, blah 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 blah. The whole 9 yard. Something happens. There's still going to be somebody out there. Oh, that wasn't that. That was this, that. That's why it's like I don't try to argue. That's
why I think it's perfectly healthy to have, especially for something like a podcast setting like we have here, to have healthy discussion like that.
Yes.
It's got to be a healthy discussion, though. I think it's very good to have somebody on who doesn't believe. I think it's good to have somebody on who does believe. It's also good to have somebody on who understands that what you see in one, you might see an hour's worth of a highlight of a night, but it took 48 hours to go through the footage of that night. And you're sitting there. I've done it before, where you got your headphones on and you're just sitting there in front of a TV screen falling asleep.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to start audio back over because that white noise put me to sleep, especially stationary recorders. I'm like,
yeah,
all comes in the room. I was like, oh crap.
But man, it's like fishing. It's kind of like when you're sitting there forever, and all of a sudden your line starts tugging, and you get that. What was that? What did I just hear? And you go back.
I did that. I did that with my most recent clip. Ethan was sitting next to me. We both looked at each other like, "What the hell is that?"
You want to
rewind.
One of my fears, and I don't know why it was an irrational fear, but when I was a paranormal investigator, watching like a still cam that had been sitting there for a few hours, it scared the shit out of me. It just scared the shit out of me, waiting for something to come out. I don't know how. I'm saying this out loud right now. It's a complete irrational fear. I was just waiting for the,
God willing, let somebody catch that.
Yeah, and I would have shit my pants.
When you're on an investigation and you're looking at that camera afterwards, though, even on an investigation, I think we're always prepared for something to happen, but we're not ready. If that makes any sense.
Yep, you can prepare, but you'll never be ready.
It's over, and you don't even have time to react to it. A lot of my friends that don't do paranormal investigation, that's one of the first questions they ask. What do you do when you get touched? Well, you react to it, because by the time you react to it, it's done.
Right.
So it's over and done with, and you're left looking around going, what the hell was that? But yeah, it's like I said, it's okay to not believe in everything. It's okay to ask questions, and I just wish everybody would do that.
Right.
I think it makes the paranormal field healthier, because you're going to weed out the bad. You're going to weed out people who are in it for the wrong things, and you're going to actually find out who's there for the right things. Because I would defend the paranormal field, as with Ricky, but at the same time, there's some people who don't give a damn about none of that. They just want to, look at me, I found a ghost, and it's CGI'd, and they make this huge thing about it. Everybody's been there. I've never.
This is what I see a lot of nowadays. I'm not putting the app down or anything. I'm just saying, because it's actually produced some decent stuff for me. But people walk in, the first thing they do, they pull up their apps. They're walking around. They're looking for, those little hits, and then all of a sudden they're dealing with a demon.
Well, I was never a fan of those apps until they started putting those spirit apps out like that. Now, I'm not talking about Oculus apps. I mean, like what you're talking about there, because it's actually using frequencies that your phone can pick up. That was a complete switch, by the way, from what you were saying. I'm sorry, but
no, it's good. It's good. I'm just saying that's the new age of paranormal investigating. What happened to baseline readings? What happened, to the pre-investigative stuff? You just see people now that just hop into it, and the first time they get a hit from an app, oh my God, it's a ghost. And the first thing you hear out of it is demon. It's like, nah.
Honestly, man, I remember years ago using the apps on the phone and thinking they were the coolest thing in the world, and then like reading more about it, and you're like, oh, it's saying random things. Like
trial and error.
If you paid attention, you would see that it would just kind of say the street name that you just passed on the way to your location or something like that.
GPS.
Yeah, so
that's why I go airplane mode.
Or it spits out a word, and you start to tailor your investigation to that word, even though it has no meaning.
Exactly. That's another like a pareidolia.
You've gone down this rabbit hole, and every word that comes out, you do a 180 on what you're doing, and you try to find a way that this fits your narrative for the night.
Right.
And the next thing you know, you're just you've gone too far down the rabbit hole.
That's why I always run a recorder when you do it.
Yeah, I'm pretty simple. Recorder, IR cameras. I don't deal with a lot of things that have flashy lights because my worry is I'm going to be paying too much attention to those lights, and something that happens right in front of my face, I'm going to miss it.
Yep.
I'm real simple when it comes to the paranormal. I'll use anything, and if it's going to benefit the team, if it's going to benefit the client, we'll incorporate it. But I don't want to get too caught up in the newest toy and lose who we are.
Absolutely. Well, guys, there is something that we all need to talk about real quick, and that is, let's see if I can get it pulled up. Got to hear a word. Heavy. Word from our sponsor, Anchor by Spotify. Guys, Ricky and I are moving over to Paranormal Podcast, which will be sponsored by Anchor by Spotify, beginning at the beginning of the year. This is going to be an interesting opportunity for you guys to download the app, which looks just like that right there on your phone. And you can go on there and find us at Paranormal Podcast. If we get 50 followers, we are monetized. So if you guys go in there to Paranormal Podcast, find us. You'll see us. You'll see our description with Ricky and Tim. Go through there. Once again, it's sponsored by Spotify. And we will get on the train there. The first episode I'm working on now, Ricky knows this. I'm pulling our first episode with Brandon Alvis, which is actually our third episode. But I'm redoing the audio, putting in the the sponsorship commercials and all that stuff into it. It's taken me about 3 weeks so far to do it, but it's being done, and I cannot wait for everybody to hear it. So there's the plug for today. Shameless plug. Sorry.
But yeah, back to spirit boxes and stuff. Like what I do with that is I record, and I remember when I first like heard of them, like, oh my God, there's no way this is real. I bought it for shits and giggles, really. So started using it, learning a little bit about it. I'm like, okay, this is scanning through radio frequencies. So then pareidolia popped to mind. So you're thinking, so you asked a question. It's like, okay, I'm asking it this, is there a Susie in this room? What do you automatically hope that thing's going to say? Yes. Well, it says something like fire, but you hear yes. I see that a lot. People, oh, it said this, it said this, it said this, it said this. And you go back with the recorder and it's like, no, we didn't say that at all. It didn't say anything like that.
The SP11 boxes, I used to get so pissed because people would hear things and I wouldn't. I would hear those, like what you were just showing. When I first saw them, I'm sorry, it was on Ghost Adventures. And they actually had made this spooky little box and they super glued a bunch of shit together, and you know what I mean? But it was interesting to me because it was like, hey, it was just clear voices, none of that voices sweeping. And that's when I finally really kind of got into that. And I'd love to be on, guys. This stuff, you got to remember, I've retired as an investigator. Didn't have all that stuff back when I was investigating. So
when you retired, that's when all this stuff started coming out.
Yeah, it was just waiting.
What are some techniques you use? Say if you do happen to have to use ITC or anything of Spirit Box or anything of that sort.
I have a fantastic ITC question, if you'll indulge me, and I can get a few minutes for it. Are either of you familiar with Tim Woolworth?
Yes, that name does ring a bell.
Fantastic with ghost boxes. Pretty much what he's been known for years now. We both ended up at Little Traverse Bay Parafest in Petoskey, Michigan, roughly 5 years ago. I believe. It's either 4 or 5. I can't not remember. And one of the greatest things about that event is they put you in a cottage for the weekend, and that's where you stay. You don't have to stay in a hotel room. You get to know the speakers very well. And I was put together with Tim Woolworth. We never met each other before, and we had to share a room. So we got to know each other really well. The night of the public investigation, I was paired with John Cassidy, who runs the event. And I'm not a huge fan of public investigations, mostly because you usually end up with 9 or 10 psychic mediums in the group, and they're telling you every 10 seconds what Uncle Frank is saying.
And everybody's talking, moving, whispering, farting. You name it, it's happening.
And I'm like, why am I even here? So
right.
That gives you some insight into how I felt about doing the investigation. So we're at this what used to be a boarding school. So it's a big building, 3 stories with a basement. And we're up on the 3rd level, and it's John and myself. And I sat down on the stairs, and I had this overwhelming anger come over me. And I remember walking up to John and saying, John, I don't know why, but I hate everybody here. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just so pissed off. And John told me to go to the end of the hallway and clear my head. So I did that. I went to the end of the hallway for a few minutes, cleared my head, came back. And there was one of these ladies in the room, and I overheard her, and she said, this man just came into the room. He's sitting at his desk. He's trying to get his paperwork done, and he's really angry that we're in here. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to play along. I said, well, where did this man come from? And she's like, well, he came up the stairs. And to me, right away, I was like, okay, well, maybe he did walk through me, and his negative energy passed on to me. And it's not that I just hate public investigations. So I'm standing next to John in the doorway. And as I'm standing there, something starts rubbing my stomach. And I look at John, and I'm like, there's something rubbing my stomach, John. And he gives me this look like, ah. And then the next thing you know, something is picking up my phone in my pocket and dropping it. And now I'm looking at John, and I'm like, I don't want to cause a scene because everybody in the room is going to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I just looked at John, and I was like, it's messing with my phone. And then all of a sudden it grabbed me there. There. And I remember looking at John, and my exact words were, John, it has my wiener. And John looked at me like anybody would, like Tim just did. And he gave me this look like, oh, come on, And he told me, he's like, go down to the 2nd floor, talk to Tim and Andrea. Well, on the 2nd floor was Tim Woolworth doing a ghost box session with Andrea Perrin from the, Perrin family. Everybody knows Andrea is. Mm-hmm. I had met Andrea before. This is my first weekend working with Tim. So I walk down, and I have to pull Tim Woolworth down to the side and tell him this story. And he looks at me just like anybody you had met tells you that a ghost touched their wiener. And as I'm telling him this, his ghost box in the hallway starts screaming out for Tim. Like, there's multiple voices just yelling Tim. And we look at each other, and we're like, well, we're both Tim. So we go down to the hallway. We're surrounded by probably 10 people on the investigation and Andrea Perrin. And we get to the ghost box, and the ghost box clearly says Brenda is the grabber. And then a bunch of ridiculously creepy children laughing through the ghost box.
That is creepy. I can hear that in my own head.
So Brenda Donald trumped you.
I looked at Tim, and I was relieved because it was validation,
Yeah.
Because up until that point, I looked like a crazy man.
Yep.
So it's one of those experiences that really does stand out. And shortly after that, John Cassidy had come down to the 2nd level and was taken off of his feet by a spirit that knocked him right over. And we got all of the people from the public out of the building at that point because things.
Yeah, at that point, that's when it's
So yeah, that'll always be my favorite ghost box story. Nice. I've used them on investigations from time to time. Mostly what I do is residential investigations, so I don't bring a ghost box out that often.
Right.
Because if the family is there, I don't want to have to explain why this loud radio is making all this noise. Yes. So I tend to steer away from it if I can, but on rare occasions we have used it. Obviously, having that one experience, I believe it is useful. at times. I don't think you can pull the ghost box out every investigation to get magical results.
Right.
But,
And it's how you use it too in the end,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm talking way too much. I can't stop drinking soda.
I've been dry. I don't know what it is myself, and I'm in a completely different region of the country than you guys. I'm real dry in the mouth tonight.
Yeah, I'm the same way right now, even here in Indiana. I think it's because we're dealing with our season change. But with me, like the Spirit Box, the Necrophotic app showed me. I'm a volunteer down at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, one of the most haunted places I've ever been, most active place I've ever been. I've had a lot of really weird experiences there. But the fact that I had the phone on airplane mode and it was away from me, and I'm just holding different, fingers up, asking, "Hey, if you can see me, tell me how many fingers am I holding up?" Say I'm holding up 4. Comes right through 4. So there was another time I had a Bang energy drink. I said BANG. I said, "Can anybody tell me what this can says?" I held it up. A couple seconds goes by, you hear bang. So I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, this is weird. So I'm looking for the intelligent, interaction with it. Would I use that as, hey, this is proof of the paranormal if I was on a case? No, but to me, that kind of like made me like, whoa, how did it know? And I changed my fingers numerous times. So 4 to 2, 1 to 5. And every time I change it, boom, boom. I mean, the exact amount of numbers I was holding up. And I'm like, okay.
This spirit episode brought to you by Bang Energy Drink.
Right. Nah, Ray's is better. Shout out Ray's.
we had another experience with a ghost box with Tim Maile. We were investigating the Terrace Inn in Petoskey, Michigan, and it was a place that I had taken Murray before for events. So we had the entire inn to ourselves. It was in the month of March, and we were doing a ghost box session, and we were communicating with the little boy at the time. And I asked the question exactly this way. I said, "Do you remember when I brought my dog to the inn?" Because it was calling me out by name, this boy, and I use air quotes. And after I asked that question, the little boy was no longer there, and this grown-ass man came through the spirit box, and the exact words were, "Tim, did you bring Murray?"
That gave me chills.
And I looked at Woolworth and I said, "We're done. Turn it off.
We're done." I get the holy water. What's going on?
Because there was a 180-degree change. We thought we were talking to a little boy, and then all of a sudden there was this man that knew my name and my dog's name, and for some reason that made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But so I mean, they can be amazing if they work.
Oh yeah,
absolutely amazing. I will say this: I have not put enough time into them to probably be able to give you an intelligent answer, other than, hey, they've worked a couple times for me.
Yeah, same here. That's where I'm at.
They're fascinating, but I also don't understand why. And I think that's also a wonderful thing to say on a podcast, because it's okay to admit that you don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me.
That's true.
I don't claim to know nothing. Like I share my experience with people. I share what I've caught. But in the end, people are so tell me how you know that's a ghost, and I'm like, I don't. I can tell you the scenario and everything that happened and what I believe it is. Do I think it's a spirit? Yes, possibly. But do I have that answer? No, I don't. People are like, well, that's confusing. But I'm just like, no, I'm just being honest. I'm not going to sit here and sell you, something that I can't 100% prove.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of the paranormal is that way. You can't, absolutely prove it. But at the same time, it is what it is.
I mean, what happened to us at the jail, at the Crime and Punishment Museum there in Georgia, bro? Can I tell you that was supernatural? Hell yeah. But would other people believe us? That's something else.
We had a 15,000-pound cage thrown at us, and that's real talk. That really happened. So,
moved,
yeah, and that's how Ricky and I met. We were with a douchebag paranormal guy. That's what we called him, and it ended up being a really good thing. There's a ton of those out there, Tim. You know what I'm talking about. There's always those one or two guys in the group. It's just a complete.
We got one of those in our area, and a while back I stopped walking on eggshells. We clean up after them all the time. And the worst one we ever had to clean up with, they told the 9-year-old boy that he had a demon inside of him. And the family fled the home. and
Oh,
they
yeah.
never heard from this team again. And we were referred in to help the family. Found out that they were working with the brother-in-law to sell investigations to this house.
There it is.
And-
That's one of the real demons of the paranormal, money.
Yeah,
Right there.
episode 1. Our episode 1. Go back and watch it. It's right on the money. It's out there, and I call it social media land. It completely explains that. But go ahead, though. What were you saying?
It was just heartbreaking that somebody would do that.
Yeah,
to a 9-year-old boy, and we were there 2 nights. The only audio we got was a voice that we couldn't understand. We played it for the client, and she recognized it as her brother because it was a speech impediment. They moved back into the house, and I actually asked if I could speak to the 9-year-old. And at this point, he's probably graduating high school, so this was a while ago.
yeah.
But I talked to the 9-year-old, and I said, there's somebody in here that should have known better, and told you things that aren't true. None of this is your fault, and you're a perfectly okay 9-year-old boy.
Yeah.
It broke my heart that somebody would use their position to cause harm like that.
Ricky and I promised from the beginning we'd never name drop people and do all that. And I think that stands true. We're going to stand true to our word on that. But I can tell you, dude, screw people like that, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of people in the paranormal too. I had somebody a while back reach out to me. Hey, bro, what does it take to get involved in the paranormal? Because I'm going to have to, I want to make some money. I'm like, you don't need to be in the paranormal, for one, if you're trying to make money. That's one thing that I see a lot of people coming in. Oh, I'm going to make money. I'm going to be a big YouTube, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, no. And then you have people buying these locations that aren't legitly, active and selling them as haunted, and people go there. There's actually a place here in Indiana that's doing that. And you go there. Now, I'm not saying it's not haunted, but I think it has to do with more what they do, what they practice there, and what they're bringing in. But I went there, had absolutely nothing happen. No audio, video, nothing.
Ricky and I's podcast here, we're all about challenging what we know is paranormal. So even in a case like this, I kind of want to ask you, and this kind of goes for everybody, but Tim, you're our guest, so I'm going to ask you, when you're on an investigation, are you there for truth? Are you there to find something, then leave? Everybody has an objective and a goal when they're on an investigation. And I'm kind of, where are you at on that?
This is going to sound hokey. It's going to sound cliche.
I need it in my life.
But if we go there and we are able to somehow make that family more comfortable than they were when they met us, that's a win.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if we have activity. I don't care if we have any sort of evidence. If that family is more comfortable, if I get a text message 2 days later saying, hey, my son slept in his own bed for the first time in 3 months, I'm good. I really am. Yep. And I've always told people that the reason that I'm good is because I don't have any aspirations. Like if TV comes along, like some of my best friends are the people that are on the TV shows. But never once have I used those friendships to get me anywhere.
Amen.
And I think they respect me for that. But if TV comes along one day,
hallelujah.
If it comes along one day, if it finds me, fine. We'll talk.
Right.
Well, but that's not going to make it. I mean, that's not the goal. The goal for me, we started this in 2008, so we're going on 14 years, and 300 investigations plus.
Yeah.
I would say about 295 of those residential. I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, that's Todd Arnold gets a lot of the credit. He runs Fox City's paranormal team with me. Todd's like a brother. We've been walking around in dark buildings together for 14 years, and we both have the same thought. And in fact, when I started getting all these opportunities, I looked straight at Todd, and Todd does a lot of local stuff with me now. We do our lectures together. But I looked at Todd and I said, Todd, if I ever change, just punch me in the face, man. Like I'm serious. Just like if you see me changing, punch me in the face because I've
seen it change people too, man. Like just sitting back and watching, just one little thing changes people, and it's just like it's sad.
Well, kind of going back to your answer,
true.
about families, I'll say two things about that. Number one, when I'm watching stuff on TV or when I hear about, one of the things that irks me the most when you're going to a family that has a haunting is the team finds a ton of paranormal footage, investigation that shows the family and then leaves. I feel like you just made that family 100,000% more uncomfortable in their own home. That's number one. So I love your answer on that because you're the exact opposite of that. But number two, what about those places kind of like, I call them for fun investigations. So you got a haunted movie theater or a haunted cemetery or whatever. What are you looking for there? You know what I mean? Like, of course it's fun, but I mean, I've seen fun investigations. Episode 2, go back and watch it. Thing in the Forest. I've seen fun investigations turn into just absolute horrifying nightmares.
I am so happy you asked that question, and here's why. What I'm looking for is typically when you go to those places, they're going to tell you about a room that nobody goes into. Or they're going to tell you about a spirit that nobody wants to talk to. And I want to go to that room and I want to talk to that spirit. And the reason I want to talk to that spirit in that room is I want their side of the story.
Yep.
Like, okay, I've got all these people telling me that you're evil. And someday this might bite me in the ass. It really might. But I go into those rooms and I talk to that spirit and I say, hey, you know what? Tell me your story. Like, I don't believe that you're this awful spirit that everybody says you are. What's your story? Tell me what you got going on. Let's talk, Tim and whoever this is. And that's what I do when I go to those places.
And that's what gets results, man. I
went to Dan Class. I'm gonna name drop. Dan Class is a great friend. Owns a Hinsdale house, and I investigated there a year and a half ago for the weekend.
Sure.
And there's one of the daughters that lived there. About 10 years after she left that house, she ended up committing suicide. And that really resonates with me. So Dan gave me her camera. And I went up to her room and I sat on what was her bed. And I just cried with her. Like I could feel her. And I asked her questions and I said, you know what? There's going to be no judgment from me. I've been there. There's no judgment because when you're in that state of mind, there is no thought in your mind that is sane at that particular moment. And I just had this conversation and opened up and, we didn't get any evidence, but the personal experience I had will last me the rest of my life.
And that's what makes it, makes it worth it in the end. That's what I say. There's always that one personal thing that you can hold on to.
It was a beautiful moment. And I love that house. I venture to say I'm a little bit obsessed with the Hinsdale house. For
on my list.
For two reasons. Dan Class is a wonderful human being and does great work with that building. And we're doing another Potographs event there next year. He got a hold of me.
I'll be there.
He said, let's do something Potographs. I said, okay, when? July 16th. We're all getting together at Hinsdale House and raising money for a pit bull rescue. And just really, really looking forward to being there again because the house just calls to you. It's amazing. And I just want to be a part of it.
Well, so when you're on an investigation, like for me, if somebody whips out a Ouija board, I'm out. So is there anything that will make you want to leave an investigation, even if it's not human per se? Is there something that says, you know what, that's the line, I'm out of here? And have you ever had that experience before?
Two answers to that question. Disrespect.
Yeah.
If I'm on an investigation, a public investigation, and somebody is disrespecting the spirit for fun or disrespecting the spirit to get a reaction, I don't want to be a part of that.
Amen.
Brandon Elvis said the same thing. He actually, quote, in fact, called people like that, quote, piece of shit.
I would agree with him 100%. I will say this. It took me 2 years into investigating to understand that if you treat a spirit like a person, you get better results. Because 100%. I was never a provoker, but I was very, hey, let's ask this question. And then 15 seconds later, let's ask another question. And I never really opened myself up or allowed myself to be vulnerable to the spirit and what their life was. As far as like being afraid of anything, though, I never allow myself to do that. And it's not to be macho. The reason behind it is I'm going into somebody's home and I'm trying to explain what's happening in their home. And I'm trying to be that person that can give them answers. And if I'm afraid of it and I don't want to be there, then what good am I doing that family? So even though I may be unsettled or unsure at times, I never ever let that show. And I can't, just because of that family.
Absolutely. For me, and I quoted Brandon there, it seems like we all kind of have a consensus on how you're supposed to act when it comes to spirits. They're people. They may have died, their heart's not beating anymore, but they're people.
They have emotions.
Yeah, if you were to walk into somebody's house, my next door neighbor's house, start screaming at them, they're either going to shoot you or whatever, but you're still a piece of shit. Just like,
right?
I'm quoting Brandon in that area.
You walk in there, hey, dude, bro, come at me. Someone's going to come at you one day.
And when you get what you're asking for, don't run out of the house screaming.
Right. And they know you better than yourself in the end. And I've seen it numerous times, but being respectful, and that's how I get most of my results, is you go into these places. Sometimes you don't even need to investigate. Just explore the location. Talk about how nice of a place it was. Oh, I wonder how this was. There's something intelligent there. It will find you. That's my technique. I use that Old South all the time, and it works. On top of that, being personable, just like you said, having a general conversation can go a long way. You want to know their story. Just because somebody, just for instance, we had a spirit down Jim. He had an apartment. He passed away back in 2009, I want to say. I think it was around that time. There in that apartment, he's a caretaker of that hospital at the time. And there was a bad history about him. I'm not going to go into it because it gets me upset. But long story short, that's why he was pissed off. People weren't telling his story right. And he had every right to be pissed off, because you have so many people calling you names and stuff. I get pissed off. Who was poking? You're throwing lighting fluid on a fire. But we, my friend Ronnie, who owns the building, and all the amazing staff that's there with us, came in, got his shout out to Leanne and everybody that we have some troopers that come to the history. They found his real history and started telling the history. The activity, the energy, and everything has changed down there. And he's one of our most welcoming spirits there now. And he interacts with you. It's all about, you have to treat them just like, you would a human.
Absolutely.
Going to these jails, you're going to deal with some dickheads. The bottom line, that's just how they were in life. That's how they're going to be in death,
They weren't there because they were wonderful people.
Right.
No, right. And that's another thing. Everybody throws around the word demon. Most times you're dealing with a spirit, like as I get older, I find myself being the guy that's, hey kids, get off my lawn. That type of old man. I think that's exactly what I'm going to turn into. But I think you find a lot of those spirits that just, they were not nice people. Right. And when they pass on, there's no reason to think they're going to have this epiphany and they're going to be people. They're
going to be running around with halos, jumping around. Oh, come here, my darling.
So you're still dealing with that sarcastic asshole that was causing problems when he was here in life. And, I've dealt with negative spirits. I've dealt with spirits I would say aren't very nice. In 14 years, I don't think I've ever, to the best of my knowledge, dealt with a demon. I'm not begging for it.
No.
The people that walk around and say that they're looking for their first demonic case,
scare me.
Yeah, they scare me. Because I have enough friends that have dealt with those that it'll find you if it wants to find you.
Yeah.
And if you open yourself up for it, it's going to find you quicker.
I mean, someday it may happen. Someday we may get called into a demonic case. And I'll be smart enough to bring in people that can help.
Right.
It's interesting you said that, though, man, because, I think on every episode that we've had, this is episode 5 now, every episode that we've done with our podcast, we have mentioned that people throw around the word demon.
It's true. Look at
the way too now. Yeah, way too much. To where it's almost like a tiger in the cage. Like, that's not how you treat demons. No, we don't want, no, you stay away from that.
They've already dissected you 1,000 times over.
They know everything about you, but they're not almighty, though. You know what I mean? I don't believe that whatsoever. I believe I'm protected. But what I'm saying is, It's just like, I just think it's just you're hitting on these points, because we have hit some of these very same points almost in every episode that we've had. Which, by the way, our hangouts are different from our podcast, guys, which is why we're not going to our comments just yet, but we'll be getting to them here shortly. So, in my case, doing a lot of these events, these paranormal conferences,
Some people are very anti-paranormal conference. They think it's this absolutely unneeded part of the paranormal field. In reality, I've created some fantastic friendships, fantastic relationships, and most importantly, I have a network of friends now that no matter what happens to us, literally, no matter what happens to us, I have friends in my phone now that I can call and I can get help for that client because, again, it goes back to you have to be humble enough to understand you don't know everything. There are going to be things that come up, and you're going to have people in your phone you can look at and go, you know what, this person knows more about this subject than I do. Let's see if they'll help me and my client. When I talked about before, as long as we've made them more comfortable than when they met us, that's a win for us. That includes, hey, I'll turn this part of the case over to this person because, they're very good at this. I don't need the credit.
Well, you're using the word client there, and it does show your intention in the paranormal field that you care that much about the people that you're working with. I think there's several different classifications of a paranormal investigator, and that falls into, I think, more of the common ones. One of the questions Trey asked last week, which, by the way, that is not up right now, but one of the questions Tall Trey had asked us last week was, why are there no ghosts in trailer parks? Or he was being funny because he's a comedian. And I think the answer to that is because people like you don't make it to the movies. People like you, those cases that you were talking about, they don't make it all the way up to the top. You never hear about them before. I've certainly seen low-income houses have, ghosts.
I've done investigations in trailer houses.
yeah. But it was a hilarious joke that he said. You had to have been there. But what he was trying to say, though, was like, hey, why is that not ever happening? Well, I think TV's ruined the paranormal. TV's ruined people who need help from the paranormal. It's done good for it, but at the same time, when it comes to that aspect, like one of the latest Ghost Adventures episode was done with Holly Madison's house. Who gives a flipping shit about Holly Madison's house? You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't even want to see her in Playboy anymore. You know what I mean? So, I wouldn't want to see her begin with anyway because I've been married for 12 years. Love you, Kristen. But anyway.
Your ass getting whooped tonight after you get off the show.
To wrap it up and finish up that thought I had, though, I'll bring in people that have more knowledge on a subject than I do, but you can bet your ass that I'm going to sit under the learning tree and watch everything they do and take notes. And the next time we run into this situation, maybe I can handle it on my own. But I'm going to take advantage of every friendship I have if it means we can help those families and that client. So, I mentioned, doing paranormal investigation, the right way. And I never tell anybody how they have to investigate because everybody does it differently. As long as your intentions are pure, I'm good with it. But we all know the wrong way.
Right.
Like the wrong way is easy to point out. But yeah, I think we get too caught up in, this case, where is it going to get me? And we're thinking about me. And I think if you open yourself up and you think about you and that family, I've always said, I've had people come up to me at events and they're like, how did you get where you are? And the first thing I do is I make a joke. And I'm like, well, where am I? I get all these opportunities and I'm grateful for them all. But at the end of the day, people come to those events looking for like the Jason Hawes, the Steve Gonzalez, the Dustin Perry, those bigger names. I went to, this is embarrassing to say on the show, but I went to DeadCon in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'd never watched an episode of, I can't think of the name of the show now. Dakota Laden.
Destination Fear.
Destination Fear.
Yep.
I went to that show not ever having seen an episode, and they were right across the aisle from me.
Yeah, they were so close to you. I remember that. Yep.
And I will say this: I don't know them. I haven't talked to them since, so this is not going to get me anywhere. But I watched them interact with everybody that came to their table, and
weren't they awesome?
They were absolutely wonderful with everybody.
Yes,
and that's the way you should treat people that come to see you. And
they never rushed anybody.
No, they got it right, and they were busy all weekend.
Yep.
And I came away from that event not as a fan of their show, but as a fan of
them. Exactly.
People, and they just were so happy every time somebody came and talked to them, and it was a lot of fun to watch that. And then they set me next to this this booth of dead animals.
Oh yeah, it's that taxidermy thing that was so
Yeah.
creepy, like satanic kind of
Yeah,
shit.
like the girl's like, yeah, we found this possum on the road, so I threw him in some formaldehyde. We're going to sell him for $55. I
They had
went to
snakes, squid, lizards, bearded dragons. I'm like,
I went to the person running the event, and I'm like, whose idea was it to put me next to whose idea was it to put the guy who was raising money for animals next to the people that have dead animals from roadkill?
I never
Who made
thought
that
of that
choice?
until now. Oh my god.
Like this is not helping me at all, guys. But those events, you'll get what you want from those events. If you go to there to learn, you're going to learn, because there's wonderful people there that will teach you everything that they know.
Oh yeah.
If you want to go there and party and have a great time, you're going to have a great time, because paranormal people know how to party.
Yeah. Oh yes, we do.
So,
as he pulls out a beer.
Root beer.
No, that's not wine coolers. It's sparkling water, because I'm foo-foo like that, y'all. That's some good sparkling water.
Well, I didn't mean to cut you off earlier, but I really, I'm picking your brain while we have you, because we've had you'll be the third guest on that we've had. The first one was obviously Brandon Alvis. Second one was a complete 1,000% skeptic, and now we have you, which is, you have a group that's actually going into private homes and residential areas, which you said 295 out of the 300 or something that you've done were, residential. To me, that's, you deserve an award for that, because there's a whole lot of Jesus Christ in that. You know what I mean? There's a whole lot of headache. And I know there's probably been a lot of them that weren't real. You know what I mean?
Well, the majority,
the majority, 100. Yeah, well, I'd say what, 95%.
It's probably, we've probably had about 30. Yeah, about 10%. We've had about 30 cases. I can look back at it and go, wow, that was pretty intense. But the word I use is pressure. You go into a residential case. And
it's a whole nother ball game,
because you're dealing with a family. You're dealing with their livelihood, and you don't want to mess that up. So there's some pressure involved, but you sometimes
I'm glad to see that there's still people out there like you, bro, because that's one thing that people you don't see anymore. Private residences.
Before you go tooting my horn too much for me, in no way are we perfect.
Right.
I mean, I look back at a lot of our cases and I think to myself, oh my God, why did we do it that way? Or why did I ask this question? Why did we set up a camera here? Why didn't we put, I'm constantly critiquing myself, because I think you have to be your own worst critic. Otherwise you don't improve.
Right.
But yeah, there's plenty of times where I've looked at the end and gone, man, we could have done so much better.
Oh, I do it all the time. Like, I'll be like, okay, this last investigation, what the hell was I thinking? Why the hell did I do that? What can I do better next time? That's a good way to look at it, though. We have to kind of, critique ourselves.
No, before I lose sight of it and forget to plug the events that I have coming up from Potographs. If you go to potographsforpooches.com, the events for March and April are up there. In March, we're doing an event, Potographs Parafest 3 at Houghton Lake, Michigan. It's a lakeside resort.
That's not too far from me.
It's our best event. We're trying to break our record last year. The keynote speakers of the main speakers this year are Brian Cano, Paul Bradford, and then we have the trio of Carl and Keith Johnson with James Anito doing a demonology.
You got all three of them? Nice.
Yeah, all three of them coming, and so that's going to be amazing. Then we have Ashmore Estates in April 23rd, and those tickets are on the website. Dustin Perry's headlining that event. Dustin has been a fantastic friend of Paranormal or Potographs for Pooches, and couldn't have done a lot of what we've done without him. He's been incredible. Great list of people at that event. That weekend actually would have been Murray's 16th birthday, so we are celebrating Murray's birthday that weekend. And those are our two big events. We've also got one at Hinsdale in July, and then sprinkle in there a bunch of other appearances that I'm lucky enough to be able to do.
I'm at to mark all three on my calendar, because Hinsdale's only a 6-hour drive from me. Ashmore's about the same 4-ish, and Michigan's not that far away.
Yeah, Michigan's great. And it's usually the start of the paranormal season for everybody. So get people out of the house.
Yes.
While we're on the subject of plugging here, I announced it through the banner a few times, But we are now up and running on our email, which is pararoundpodcast@protonmail.com. If you have any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, any subject you want to see us cover here on the show, please go shoot us an email. Ricky and I both will be able to see it. Ricky, I'll hook you up on that later on.
Cool.
Because Ricky and I are on episode 5 now and working on episode 6, which is probably going to be without a guest, so we're going to need a subject. We've covered everything already from demons, people, Bigfoot, even a little bit of alien here and there. What else do you guys want to see us break down? I personally would like to see something like Skinwalkers or something. But anyway, I just wanted to put that up there. Again, it's on the screen for people who are viewing the show on YouTube or on Facebook. It's pararoundpodcast@protonmail.com. And for those of you who are listening on Spotify, because this will be on Spotify in the future, it's pararealmpodcast@protonmail.com. There's my other shameless plug for tonight.
Very well said. But yeah, let's kind of turn it over to the audience. You know, if you have any questions for Tim, ask away. Let's go.
This Tim, not this Tim.
Well, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to be pointing to that Tim.
And then that Tim's going to be pointing to this.
Well, you know, and before we get into the questions, you said something earlier that like made me, even though you're a Michigan fan, it made me love you to death. It was, you said that you were like, I'm just picking at you, go Dogs. But anyway, you said that even if you're with somebody, you're going to be under the learning tree. I think the key to being in the paranormal is realizing that no matter how long you've done it, no matter how much you know, at the end of the day, there's not a walking soul who knows everything about the paranormal. Really, I think the closer you get to it, the further away it gets to me. So the fact that you recognize that, my hat's off to you. And the memory of Murray, I hope it lives on and on and on forever, long after you're gone, man. So, you know,
he's definitely touched a lot of people.
And I appreciate those kind words. I'm an advocate for mental health and talking about depression and anxiety and making it a normal subject because it's something that's really important to me. And I've talked openly about how I feel in my head from day to day. I still battle depression. There are some days I wake up and my brain will straight up just say, Tim, you suck at life. Everybody hates you. And I push through those days.
Yep.
Because I have to, because I made him a promise. But I also think it's important, for us to talk about it and to get it out into the open and have those healthy discussions. And that's one of my favorite parts about events is I get done with my talk and people come up to me and they want to talk about it. Hey, I finally got somebody I can talk to about this. And my biggest fear is that I'm going to meet somebody someday that I'm not going to be able to help.
Well, it's interesting you said that because Ricky's dealt with, mental stuff before. I have clinical PTSD myself. I was diagnosed about 2.5 years ago. So again, the more you say, the more you talk about this, it just kind of sends shivers down my spine because I'm very open with it. Ricky and I both on this podcast are very open to anybody who wants to speak to me about mental health. We always say, now we have an email that's up. Email us. We will come right back to you. Please. I would sit with you all night. It's not worth it. Find you a Murray if you need to. You know what I mean?
Dogs, and that's the thing. It does. Dogs, animals, they will get you through it. They are the most unconditional loving beings.
There is no perfect answer, though. There's no perfect solution. I had Murray. You got to find something that's important. You got to find something that has meaning to you. And just to wrap up the thought, I've been very open about the fact that I'm not afraid of death. And coming from where I've come from and having the suicide attempt, that scares a lot of people when I say that. I'm not looking forward to death. But I will say this, I don't want people to mourn me when I'm gone. And the reason I say that is because that moment that I pass, you can bet your ass that it is the most magical, beautiful reunion that has ever taken place. Because I firmly believe that waiting there for me is going to be Murray.
You know damn well he is too.
And he and I are going to be back together, and nobody should cry about that. Nobody should be sad, and everybody should look at it and go, you know what? This is what he wanted all along. You know, someday I'm going to have that reunion, and it's going to be beautiful. And until that day comes, I'm going to love all my friends. I'm going to love my family, and I'm going to do what I can for those animals, because that's kind of what I've been put on Earth for, I think. So
I was just thinking, say your life has a purpose, just like everybody
you
else's.
found your calling, bro.
And you have found your calling. A lot of people haven't, though, and that can scare people, especially into the mental health thing. I know this is a paranormal podcast, but we're going to talk about it.
No, it goes hand in hand. I mean,
it does. I was going to say that at the beginning of the show. You started talking about your life and what was going on. I believe that there's a direct correlation between paranormal events and mental health, just like I believe there's a direct correlation between terroristic events or something like that and mental health. And then it goes the other way around, where somebody's just in their room, and like me, I've been there before. I don't even want to get. I've spent days in the bed before, just in it because it's heavy. I'm disordered. I can't tell where I'm at half the time. I can't keep my eyes focused. Yeah, you don't feel like a human being. You don't even feel like you're in your own body sometimes. But guys, I am here to tell you that the roof will break, the clouds will open, and that sun will come back and hit you on the face, and you will find your purpose. I promise you. If I'm wrong, then get me after we pass away. You can beat me up all you want to, but I promise you, I'm telling you the truth. There's light. Oh, and I didn't want that to be too depressing, but you know, your stories touched me in a way to where I had to say that. You know, I'm like you. If you cry for me after I pass away, you're being selfish, because me and my brothers are partying. You know what I mean? So, and I'll kick it with Murray after this too. No, I'm just saying. I have plenty of dogs, animals, friends, people, family. I think we all have been through something. But again, mental health is important. We're wide open to any of that here on this podcast. But yeah, we do have a question here from Urban Ghost Hunter. It says, "Hey Tim." What? That is Tim, like Tim Maile Cyrus. Tim Maile. I didn't want to butcher it. It says, "Hey Tim, as a paranormal investigator that handles private investigations, how extensive is your vetting of a case before you take it?" That's a good question.
It's a very good question, and to be honest with you, coming from a place where I wasn't given the time of day, there's been 2 cases that I've turned away. Now, that being said, I do go through an extensive process beforehand to get to know these people that we're going into their homes, because I fear the living way more than I fear the dead.
Amen.
But yeah, we go through a phone interview, and then I will set up a face-to-face interview and go in and see the home and see what we're dealing with and how big the home is and how many people we will need. Sometimes there's 2 visits on that. Sometimes the phone interview is an hour, 2 hours long. However long it takes for not only me to be comfortable with them, but also for them to be comfortable with me.
Right.
And you have to ask the hard questions, you know, because you need to know what you're walking into. And now, is somebody going to tell you the truth every time when you ask them, is there a history of drug use? Most times not, but you have to at least ask the question.
You do. Yep. That's one of the hardest questions it has too.
So yeah, I mean, is there a history of drug use? Is there a history of mental health issues? That's another question. Even though I'm dealing with mental health, I want to know if I'm walking into something that includes that, because that changes a lot of things. So yeah, I mean, we take every precaution that we can, but there are still risks that we take when going into a home. Thankfully, we're in the state of Wisconsin where most people are decent. We're not walking into areas where, you fear for your life just for being in that area. So we have that going for us, but yeah, I mean, it's a process, but at the end of the day, as long as I feel comfortable, we're going to go in and we're going to help that family. Now, does that mean we're going to find a ghost? Most times not. But can we go in there and give them logical reasons? Common sense reasons for the things that are happening, and can that make them feel more comfortable? Of course it can. Some people aren't open to that. Some people really want a ghost, and those are the folks that are going to run to everybody they know and tell you that Tim doesn't know what he's talking about, because I couldn't make a ghost for them. So yeah, I mean, we go through the process. That's important to us, like I said, for our comfort and the client, because you got a client that's at a point where they're going to let 5 strangers come into their home on a Saturday night and walk around for 7 hours.
Yeah.
You know, they're at that point where they're going to allow that to happen. So I want them to be comfortable with us too. So sorry about the long answer.
No, you're fine.
No, you're good.
Next question is from our number one fan, Glenn Morgan. And he says, Tim, the guest, what was your scariest thing that happened to you during an investigation? That's for you.
Scariest thing that happened on an investigation. There's been a couple things that startled me. I got actually punched at a museum here in Oshkosh. Wow. That's because I made a promise that we were going to get this Spirit's military uniform put on display. And then at the end of the rotation, I put it back into storage because I didn't have the clearance to take it out of storage. Eventually, his military uniform was put on display at the museum. Lieutenant Edgar Dunham.
Wow.
That was one of the moments in my paranormal career that I'm most proud of, because the museum called me up and said, "Hey, it's on display if you want to come down and have a moment." And I just went down and I sat in the room with the jacket and just thanked him, you know, for trusting us. And, most recently, we were at an old hospital here in Wisconsin, and I was alerted by one of our team members that there was a shadow figure in the doorway next to me. I was sitting down in the hallway, and I looked to my left, and sure enough, it was standing in the doorway. It was about as big as the doorway. And I got up to go see where it went, and it ran through 3 separate doorways before just disappearing.
Oh,
and,
wow.
That was kind of an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
But not in not in a way that I was, you know, I didn't fear, you know, for my well-being. It was just
that was just a shocking, like,
yeah, you're ready for it, but you're never ready for it, that type of thing.
Well, speaking as being as big as a doorway, my buddy Aaron Doan here, aka Mick Foley 2.0, he says, have you had a true event that made you leave an investigation?
I've never left an investigation. So the short answer is no. But I explained that earlier in the night, you know, mostly doing residential investigations. If I'm going to run out of the building, then I'm not helping that family. So, you know, no matter what's happening that night, we need to find a way to deal with it. Now, have I left the building and gone outside to get air? I've done that plenty of times. Because you have to know when you're not feeling right, and remove yourself from the situation for a few minutes and clear your head. I've done that plenty of times, but never straight up left.
I'm going to take the question on this one as well. Aaron Doan is one of my good buddies here. He probably doesn't know this answer, but I was investigating with a team in Woodstock, Georgia one time at a house where the guy had pretty much played with the Ouija board too many times, and he was having some issues. I was upstairs where we had pretty much made like a base camp, and there was a TV with 4 cameras and everything, and I watched a girl get the glasses slapped off her face. And as she was walking down the hallway, the pictures were coming off the wall, falling off the wall, and that made me leave that investigation. So that has happened to me before. Of course, I was like,
me too.
Yeah, that did happen to me. That's a true event. That happened at Woodstock. We came back same night, but I had to go to the grocery store, not the grocery store, but the convenience store. I had to say some prayers, get involved with St. Michael at that point, you know, and have to come back because that was crazy. Yeah.
We had a few months ago, probably almost, well, it's coming up on a year now. We were called into a home where the grandmother was raising the granddaughter because her daughter had been murdered by her boyfriend. Ouch. And then he had killed himself. And we were called into the home to help this. I believe at the time she was 7. And we were doing our initial walkthrough. It was just Todd and I, our first interview with the client. And I was following her down the hallway, and something launched me into the wall. And I'm a big dude.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything to the client because I didn't want to alarm her. And I turned around and made eye contact with Todd, and all Todd said to me was, "Did what I think just happened happen?" And I looked at him, I nodded yes, and we carried on with the night. And by the end of the night, we were working with a medium. By the end of the night, the medium looked at me and said, I can't remember the murderer's name anymore, which is good because I don't want to give him any respect in that sense. But she looked at me and she said, "He's terrified of you." Like he gave you his best shot, and you didn't blink. So yeah, we were able to help that family too. Now, at the end of the day, I can't take credit for any of that because I don't know what I did to help them. I just know that they're better now and they're not dealing with it.
That's all that matters, man.
And again, like I said earlier, they're more comfortable than when we went in there the first time. And I can't point to anything and say, hey, that was my doing. I could just tell you the stories of what happened to us in the place and what we dealt with. And there was definitely something happening there. And they're okay now, and that's all
that matters.
That's all that matters.
So you kind of answered it, but you didn't earlier. Aaron kind of followed that up with, "Are you not worried about attachments?" I'll say my piece on that. I think we're all a little concerned about those at all times, but I think I got a feeling how you're going to answer that. But go ahead.
I have a concern, but I protect myself the best I can. But at the end of the day, you can do everything to protect yourself, and it can still happen. Yeah. So it's just something that if it happens, you deal with it. I've had things come home with me. I've had things out of curiosity come back home. And basically every time that has happened, I've been able to ask them to leave, and it has worked. I had a real big fear of attachments when Murray was alive because I didn't want to bring something home that was going to affect him.
Yeah.
That was my biggest concern is I don't want to bring something home that's going to mess with him. Along those lines, I've had people ask, do you bring dogs on investigation? Did you bring Murray on investigation? And the answer was always no, because every investigation that we go on, we're doing that on our own free will. We've made that decision and we know what we're getting into. Each investigation you go into, it can go sideways in a hurry. Even the most calm spirit in the world, you can end up with something that just isn't happy that you're there. And I never wanted to put him in that situation, and my decision caused him harm. So I've never done that. And I'm not here to tell people that do that they're awful people. It's just not something that I wanted to do.
Right.
Well, while we have a few more minutes, we're getting pretty close to an hour and a half here. I just wanted to tell you it's been a phenomenal time to meet you and talk to you. I really, really hope everybody finds somebody who looks at them the way that you look at Murray. So, because that's true love, guys. That's what that is. Yeah. It sounds to me like you would have risked your life for that dog. And I'm not downplaying that. I mean, I'm serious. Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. And our comment section has kind of been off the chain with questions here, so I'm pretty cool with that. It's been back to back to back. So, with that said, Tim, is there any other things that you want to cover before you go with Potographs, or is there any events you have coming up? Or
I just want to say go blue real quick. And
go dogs, go blue. We're all friends here.
If you run to potographsforpooches.com, there's a couple of events there on the event page. Come out and support us. If you can't make it, buy a ticket. All the money goes to the shelters in the area. March's event is for Northern Michigan Animal Rescue Network, and April's event is for Coles County Animal Shelter. Both fantastic shelters. Your money's going to go to a great spot. You're going to meet some incredible people. The difference between a regular paranormal conference and a paranormal conference at Potographs for Pooches is the fact that at our events, everybody has the same goal. And that goal is to raise as much money as we can for the animals. And it's amazing to watch people come to the table and ask, how are we doing? Have we met our goal? Wonderful people to give their time. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Michelle Nason. She's a fantastic friend who also is an investigator on Fox City's paranormal team. For the March event, she goes ahead and she makes about 50 dog-themed baskets and raffles them off. Last year, raffle baskets alone, she raised over $1,600. So shout out to her. She's a fantastic person. She does great work. If you go and check out Tipsy's Treasures, she makes memory bears for people out of their loved ones' clothing after they've passed. So she does a lot of good for a lot of people. She does fantastic work. Go check her out if you can. Tipsy's Treasures. She does a lot of work for Potographs for Pooches, so I got to give the love when I can.
Now that you mentioned Big Blue, I wanted to bring up this. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm ADHD. This is Jim Harborough. This is the head coach for Michigan.
Does look like Zach Bagans.
Does he not? Guys, everybody in the comment section, does he not look like Zach Bagans? I see it every time.
Zach Bagans has never looked sexier than he does now at 12-1 and going to the college football playoff.
Oh man.
Hey!
Oh man. Oh
But
man.
yeah, behind me here, if I can get the right hand, you'll see the Potographs for Pooches photos that I have on the wall. Those are some of the originals. The important thing is that Murray's legacy lives forever. The logo is his face. I asked the artist to make it so that it looked like he was looking back at us through heaven. And I think she nailed it. That'll always be the logo. We've got shirts and sweatshirts at events. I don't have them on the website yet just because, honestly, I'm trying to run this by myself. And it's hard to keep up.
Make sure you go to an event and do like I did. Pick one up. They're comfortable.
Come to an event. Talk
warm.
to me. Tell me your story. I will listen to your story until you're blue in the face. I want to thank you guys first and foremost because I never get to talk paranormal anymore. I always talk Murray. I always talk Potographs for Pooches, and I will do that with love, and I absolutely adore it. But given the chance to finally talk paranormal, it felt good because it's been a long time. So thank you guys for that.
Anytime you want to talk paranormal, you're welcome on this show, bro. Hit us up. We'd love to have
Your kind spirit, man, and I really appreciate you being here. Before we do leave, though, again, guys, we are live on our email. If you want to reach out to us about questions, comments, feedback, concern, whatever, if you want a subject, if you have a picture that you want shown, whatever, pararoundpodcast@protonmail.com. Me and Ricky both can see it and both respond to it. And I think, Ricky, you're a pretty quick responder, just like I am.
Yeah.
We're both busy people, but we will get to you. That is something, and even when we go back to the mental health stuff, guys, if you have an issue, we're not doctors, but we will listen to you. Please, whether it's paranormal or you need whatever, just give us a holler. We want to hear from you. With that said, Tim, you've just been an awesome guest, man. I don't know how else to thank you enough for being here. I hope that after Georgia beats Michigan, you'll still want to come back on with us. And
you guys
You're
are stuck
jinxing
with
us
me.
because what it might happen. Because look what we did with Alabama.
Yeah, you guys are stuck with me. I appreciate you giving me the time and the platform to talk about this. And you guys are stuck with me. We're friends for a while. So
hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
I can hear that.
Julie says, great podcast. Good night, everyone. Good night, Julie. Did you say that's your mother?
that's my mom.
Okay. Thank you, Mom, for making a great guy. So, all right. Everything else, guys, please hit us up. Even in our inboxes. But remember, Spotify. Let me pop that up one more time before we leave. Anchor, sponsored by Spotify. That will be launching after New Year's. That's the app that you're looking for. Download it. Come find us. Follow us. You'll be able to see us, and we will be on Spotify as well. So the more followers we have, the more products you get, and the more guests like Mr. Tim here we will have. Tim, we'd love to see you back on our show, man.
Anytime. You just let me know. This is a lot of fun. Again, thank you guys, and thanks to all the listeners. You guys have a good night.
Have a good night, y'all. All right, we're going to go backstage. Have a good night, y'all.